Let's talk about something we've all been through when we're trying to watch TV shows and movies in a foreign language. We don't actually understand what's being said. When I first started learning English, it was probably one of the hardest things for me to do. I would start watching something that I really liked, some TV show or maybe some movie, but then I couldn't make out the words. The lines the actors were saying, the way they were speaking, it was all super hard for me to understand without turning on the subtitles. And when I just started my language journey, it was a big issue for me. I was thinking to myself, you will never get it, you will never be able to understand what you're watching without subtitles, you're a bad learner. But after some time, I came to the conclusion that subtitles aren't actually bad. They can be a very useful tool to improve your listening skills and become more comfortable with fast spoken English. At least they really helped me. I was able to improve my level using the methods that I'm gonna go over in this video, and I will talk about my own experience, what ended up working for me, what TV shows and movies I watched, and all the various things that boosted my listening ability. Okay, why was it so difficult for me at first to understand TV shows and movies in English? And why does it feel just as hard for you? So I found out that the thing that I struggled with the most was rapid pace and accents. Native speakers speak fast, they combine words together. This is something that is called connected speech. A good example of connected speech would be this sentence. What you mean by that? I heard this sentence in some stand-up comedy show, and what the native speaker was actually saying was, what do you mean by that? What you mean by that? So you have to recognize these patterns and be ready for them. And subtitles are gonna help you with it so much. Because when you can both see and hear a word at the same time, your brain learns to link its pronunciation with its spelling. Another thing that you can struggle with is accents. There are so many of them and they are so hard to understand. And here I would say that the most important thing is to remember that you'll get used to them eventually. A couple of years from now, you'll be looking back at the time when you were struggling and you'll be like, God, that was so difficult, but it's so much easier now. Just keep in mind that it takes time and that eventually you'll get good at understanding accents. And another great thing is that once you're comfortable with understanding more challenging accents like British and Australian, the American accent will feel like an old friend to you. You'll be like, hey buddy, how are you doing these days? What's been going on in your life? Okay, but what about the rapid pace? How do you fix that? All these actors, they're speaking way too fast. They're saying all these unfamiliar words. The thing that worked for me is that you can watch something easier in the beginning, but something you can still enjoy. For example, at the beginning, I was watching animated cartoons that I watched as a teenager because I was already familiar with the plot and the characters. Another great thing you can do is to watch educational content. You can go on YouTube, you can go on the internet and find something that is produced for non-native speakers, something that is a little bit easier to understand. I'm not saying that you have to watch only this type of content, only educational content, and that's it. You can absolutely mix it up. You can watch a little bit of challenging stuff and then return to easier content. Try to find some sort of balance when you're not feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by all this unfamiliar vocabulary. Now let's talk about the second reason why it was hard for me to understand TV shows or movies in English. It's because people who speak English natively, they use a lot of idiomatic language and slang. And when you hear all of these words for the first time, you just want to quit learning English. It can be super frustrating for us language learners. I remember multiple times when I was just sitting in front of the screen and there was like, what are you talking about? Can you use simple words? Remember that it's okay to struggle with vocabulary. For example, we have these two idioms, a cakewalk and a walk in the park. And essentially they mean the same thing. Something that is easy to do. For example, you can say this exam was a cakewalk or my job interview was a walk in the park. But even though these idioms mean the same thing, you can't know it if you haven't encountered them before. And when you see this idiom, a cakewalk, for the first time, it can get a little frustrating. You can be like, a cakewalk? Is that a cake that walks? It doesn't make any sense. At first, it won't make any sense, but the good thing is that you can improve over time. And at some point, you'll be able to understand the meaning of every unfamiliar word or phrase from the context. Also, it's good to remember that there are homophones, words that sound the same but mean different things. For example, let's take a look at this sentence. From the ship, I could see the sea. And we understand that by the sea, the author meant the ocean, and another sea, it's this thing that we're doing with our eyes. But if you can stop and actually think about it, for example, you're watching something without subtitles, you decided to challenge yourself a little bit, and you came across this sentence, see the sea, and your brain short circuits, you can't process it. And it's absolutely okay. Every language learner feels this frustration sometimes. But how can we actually fix that? Well, every now and again you can try to memorize this word, you can create a flashcard with it, you can use multiple applications for this purpose. For example, I'm using Anki right now. Or you can just try to remember the context where you met this phrase so you can recognize it later. And don't forget that people who speak English natively watch TV shows with subtitles as well. There was a study in 2023 that showed that 40% of Americans under the age of 30 watch TV shows with subtitles on. So we are not alone. Even natives sometimes do that. The third thing I struggled with the most is cultural context and references. Being a non-native speaker, it's sometimes tricky to understand all the nuances, all the references to pop culture, to different songs, to different important people. And if I'm being honest, it's really hard to fix that particular issue, because if you're not exposing yourself to this culture on a regular basis, it would be pretty tricky to catch all the references. But one thing you can do is to watch TV shows or movies that are relevant right now, that are talked about. And if you have some question about this particular culture, you can go on the internet again, you can go on Reddit. It's a very great website that I use all the time, and you can ask people, what does this particular reference mean? Why is everybody laughing at this joke, for example? A lot of big franchises have huge communities on Reddit, and you can follow these communities. You can ask people the questions that you have, you can understand a little bit more about this particular culture. Remember that if you don't understand something, there is a huge chance that guys are already talking about it on Reddit, they're discussing it, and maybe your question was already answered. Another thing that you can do is to increase your exposure to English in general. You can listen to podcasts, you can watch some content that you are into. For example, if you're into motorcycles or if you're into sports, you can watch content about that, and with time you'll be able to pick up more and more references, because your exposure to this culture will be bigger. Because the more content you consume in English, the better your level is. Of course, you have to mix it up with different activities, you have to learn vocabulary, you have to learn grammar, but the great thing about content is that you can actually enjoy the process. You can watch whatever you like the most. For example, when I started my language journey, everybody was trying to talk me into watching Friends, but I had one small issue with it. I couldn't stand the laugh track. A laugh track, it's this thing in the background when everybody is laughing, having a great time, and I can't stand this thing. I just don't like it. So this particular show wasn't for me. But I'm a huge fan of animation. I love animated cartoons. It may sound a little childish, but it worked for me. After watching a couple of animated shows, I was able to move to more serious stuff. For example, I started watching Breaking Bad. And it would have been harder for me to do if I hadn't watched all these simple shows. Do exactly what you would do in your native language. For example, there is this TV show, your friends are discussing it, they are advising you to watch it, but after a couple of episodes you find it quite difficult to understand. And it's okay to quit watching the show. You can move on to something else, because our ultimate goal, like I said, is to consume more content and continue doing it repeatedly. And with this approach, we will improve over time. On this note, I would like to wrap up my video. Thank you very much guys for watching. I would really appreciate your support. Let's discuss something in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.